This is Chris, and he races Rotax Max karts, but with a difference. Chris has a tetraplegic spinal cord injury, which means he has no use of his legs, his core muscles, and limited function in his hands. And today, with his help, I'm going to find out what it's like to drive a very fast kart using only hand controls, as well as what can happen when you get it wrong.
So we're here at Rye House. For me, this is another test day. Got a race coming up in a couple of weeks in France. When I was 13, 14, I got a job at a local go-kart track near me. For most of my teenage years, I lived and breathed. If I wasn't working down there, I was going round and round and round. But I got a little bit older, I found motorbikes. I got a GX-UK 600 and a GX-UK 750. Did a few track days on those and was looking to get a track-focused bike. 21 years old, I had a car crash going to and from work. I was working too much and burning the candle at both ends, and basically had a crash on the M1. And broke my neck at C6. Shut the motorway. I probably annoyed quite a few people. Helicopter landed on the motorway, took me to Milton Keynes. 14 months into hospital, I sent my driving licence off to get reassessed, and I was allowed back driving. The day I got my licence back and the day that I picked up my adapted Ford Focus, we booked a trip to go to France, and thought the best way of learning is throwing myself in the deep end, which has sort of carried with me through to today, where I've jumped straight into a Rotax Max. So I could have gone into a slower class kart, but thought, you know, let's just go for it. I'd only get bored of a slower engine, I think, and I'd want a faster one. So here we are. With my injury, my hands don't work, so actually being able to hold a steering wheel, there's adaptations involved with that, and you know, rewind sort of 15-20 years, there wasn't the infrastructure or the community knowledge to be able to do that, especially not in the UK. Nowadays there's lots of kart tracks that have got adaptive karts, which I think is a great positive step, but again, they can't cater for every disability. So again, they cater for disabilities where their hands work, and the hand controls are typically behind the steering wheel. This hand control here is butchered from a normal hand control you can get for a car, which is a chassis mounted here. So I push to brake and I pull to accelerate. In a car, these are connected to the pedals. I bought this high back seat, which needed to be mounted slightly differently, as well as having harnesses. Having quite a high level spinal cord injury, not only does my fingers not work, which makes putting gloves on quite interesting, I've got no core muscles, so without the harnesses I'll just wobble around too much in the cart. So the steering, for me, I use this attachment here, and I have a gripping aid as well, so a glove that will go over the top that will give me a false grip onto this. Not only do my fingers don't work, but I've lost muscle usage in my upper body. Go-kart without power steering, I can't actually turn the steering wheel. So I've got a electronic power steering unit, mounts under the nacelle panel. It runs off its own battery, which is down between my feet. Real simple system.
So it was time for Chris to show me the ropes before he let me loose in the kart he was going to race the following weekend. And you can see he doesn't hang about. Despite driving with only one hand on the steering wheel and having to rely on the seatbelts to keep himself upright in this extremely fast kart, Chris is able to push in a way which makes it difficult to see that he has any limitations. And it was this level of confidence in the kart that I was aiming for my upcoming run.
Now Chris is out here making this look easy, but I'm a bit concerned that when I drive this kart, I'm just going to do something completely wrong. This kart has all the performance of an ordinary non-hand control Rotax Max, if you can operate the controls properly, like Chris obviously can out here. Now, I've driven a lot of different karts this year, but never one with hand controls, so this is going to be something completely new for me, and I really hope I keep Chris's kart out of the barriers. Right, it's my turn. I'm going to give this a go now, so wish me luck. Chris has shown me how it's done. Yeah, I'll report back to you. Well, in a moment, you're going to hear everything. Let's go. Right, let's go. Okay, this is the most scared I've been in a kart in a long time.
And with good reason.
Oh my God, this is going to be crazy.
Because as with any skill that you normally do subconsciously, changing the way you make inputs can mean that your subconscious reaction is completely the wrong thing.
Oh my God, I just don't trust myself. I don't trust myself with the hand controls. Oh, and the throttle's very on and off. Oh my God, this is hard. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to use the steering wheel to begin with, whilst I get used to the throttle control.
I was already finding the pivoting ball steering attachment too difficult to use, so I decided to hold the steering wheel more normally and focus on getting used to the hand throttle and brake.
Wow. Okay, so the power steering makes the steering very, very darty. I can't believe Chris is so smooth with it.
Understandably, I started off with quite a lot of trepidation, but as the laps went on, I got more and more confident with the controls, and by around lap 4, I was getting more comfortable with applying the throttle early and trying to carry more speed through some of the corners.
I'm terrified. I'm terrified of doing the wrong thing and driving into a wall.
And remember, in just a week's time, Chris would be off to his big race in France, so he wouldn't be best pleased with me if I managed to bend the kart. And I wasn't the only driver struggling to keep their kart on track.
Oh, there's a kid in the barrier there. Right, I might try turning off the power steering now. Let's see what that's like. No, that's worse for sure. Alright, we're back on with the power steering. I couldn't turn the wheel. And that's because it's not just like normal steering one-handed. You're having to fight against the power steering system.
I was just going to have to get used to being much more delicate with the steering, because every input was magnified by that electronic system.
Now I think I prefer the seatbelts on. I'm not wearing the seatbelt, so I didn't want to be attached if it rolled over, but I'm moving around a lot in the seat.
But despite these niggles, I was starting to get more comfortable, and on the next lap I decided to try and push for a faster lap time.
I think if I was moving around less, it'd be easier. I'm definitely getting used to this. Just as I was saying, I'm getting used to it.
I'd attempted to quickly lift off the throttle, but that had resulted in me nailing the brakes.
Now, let's just move this off the grass. Okay. Okay, we're going again. We're all good. Didn't die. Just got overconfident.
Happy to have kept it out of the barriers, and having learned my lesson, I set off again to try and set some competitive lap times.
I need to be more smooth on the brakes. But my problem is lifting off. I brake by mistake. So I need to get used to lifting and not braking. So I need to do gentle early braking, because I can't control it like I'm used to controlling on my foot. I need to only do heavy braking in a straight line.
After a few more laps of getting my head around the kind of gentle pressure required on the hand controls, I began to set some slightly more respectable lap times. And by the end of the run, I was happy that I'd at least partly got my head around how to drive this kind of car.
Okay, we have thrown a chain.
And I took that as a signal that my time was up in Chris's kart, and it was time to hand it back over to him whilst it was still in one piece.
But didn't die, got down to a 42. You can't assume that you can brake as late and as hard as you would in a kart that you're used to. If you've ever ridden a backwards bicycle where you're having to steer the wrong way, you can kind of do it until you need to react quickly and naturally, and then you do the wrong thing. And that's what I was finding in this.
I'm racing next week in France in a track called MORE KERB, and it's an adaptive race series called Handicap. There's 3 categories within it. So there's H1, H2 and H3, which all relates to how many limbs you have an impairment of. And the H1 guys, they've got obviously one impairment, so it could be a paralysis of a leg or an amputation or some sort of a limitation on an upper limb. It has an impact on your ability to drive. The most common level would be a H2, which would be your typical, if there is a typical paraplegic, broken their back, no legs work, but all their upper body works. And then you've got your H3, which is the category that I would fall into, which is 3 limbs that has an effect. I've gone all out and I've had 4 limbs that have an effect, and there's lots of other tetraplegic or quadriplegic drivers that I'll be competing against, and that's the real interest for me. There is a space where people with mobility issues should and could be allowed to race with able-bodied people, but I think there's also a space for a standalone race where people with disabilities race against other people with disabilities, and they have their own categories. So I'm looking forward to seeing where I fit in with my very limited testing compared to very experienced tetraplegics. I'm sure I'm going to be rolling around at the back, but it's all good practice, and yeah, we'll see where we end up at the end of next weekend. So within the UK at the minute, there isn't a standalone adaptive race. I'm working with Natalie McGloin, who works as the FIA Disability Commission President, and we're hoping to bring a standalone race within the UK.
My name is Natalie McGloin and I am the FIA Disability and Accessibility Commission President. Motorsport is a hugely accessible sport for disabled people. I race a car but all aspects of motorsport are accessible for disabled people. Karting is probably one of the disciplines that your disability affects you the most because of the physicality of it. Now, the great thing for disabled karters, especially novices who are looking to get involved in the sport, is we have an information dossier at the FIA filled with adaptations that we've seen in karting that you can put on your own kart. We have an Instagram channel, it's FIA_disability_accessibility, where you can see a whole host of different disabled people competing in different aspects of motorsport. So the handicart race has been running for 12 years in France. I'm hoping that we can bring it to the UK. Silverstone has a new kart circuit. It has excellent disabled facilities, and my ambition is to get that race here.
Let's see what 2026 brings, and hopefully we can get a community of ourselves going within the UK. At the minute we've set up a Facebook group called Disabled Karting UK, so if anyone's interested that's got a mobility issue, that's looking to get into go-karting at all, then I would suggest that they direct themselves there, or they could reach out to me on socials or to Natalie herself.